You know what the greatest revenge is? It's not slamming the door. It's not showing off. It's not even moving on faster than them. The greatest revenge is becoming someone they never get access to again. Someone they underestimated. Someone they thought they could walk away from, but now they look back and realize they'll never find again. This is about you becoming that version of yourself. The version that's not broken by the loss, but rebuilt by it. You don't just want them to regret losing you. You want to become someone no one ever dares to lose again. Let's talk about how to become that person. Step by step, you can't become unforgettable if you're still hiding from the truth of your story. The first real step in becoming the one they regret letting go is this: own your breakup story. That sounds simple. It's actually one of the hardest things people avoid, because facing pain head on takes courage. It takes honesty, and it takes a commitment to no longer lie to yourself about what happened. You have to stop pretending you were fine, you weren't, and that's okay. Maybe they ghosted you, maybe they strung you along, maybe they promised you things, made you feel special, then vanished. Like none of it mattered. That does something to your self-worth, but you can't heal if you keep skipping over that part. You've got to tell yourself the truth. You've got to sit down and say, I was hurt, I was angry, I felt like I wasn't enough, I felt rejected, I felt discarded. That's not weakness, that's awareness. That's step one. Most people try to get over a breakup by erasing it. They delete photos, block the number, avoid the memories. They try to outrun the pain like it's chasing them. But healing doesn't come from erasing. It comes from confronting. If you never face what happened, you never get the lesson. And if you don't get the lesson, you'll carry the same wounds into your next relationship, your next dream, your next decision. So instead of asking why they left or why they changed, ask yourself what you learned, not just about them, but about you. What part of you ignored red flags? What part of you settled when you knew deep down something was off? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. When you own your side of the story, you stop waiting for someone else to come back and give it meaning. You start creating that meaning for yourself. You also have to stop rewriting the story just to soothe your ego. Sometimes we glamorize people after they leave. We forget the disrespect, the inconsistency, the mind games. We only remember the good parts. That's dangerous, because then you're not missing the person. They're just triggering your attachment to a fantasy. You created the version of them that existed in your mind, is not the version that walked away from you. And here's the hard truth. Not everyone who leaves is a villain. Some people leave because they're lost. Some leave because they're selfish. Some leave because they never had the capacity to love you the way you needed. That doesn't mean you weren't worthy. It just means they weren't capable, and that's not your responsibility to fix. Once you own your story, you stop asking for closure from people who never gave you clarity. You stop needing apologies to feel whole. You stop waiting for them to realize your worth, because you've already realized it yourself. The person who walked away, ignored you, underestimated you. That person no longer defines your value. You do. Owning your story also means refusing to make your pain your personality. You don't need to carry heartbreak like a badge of honor. You're allowed to move forward without bitterness. You're allowed to grow without needing revenge, because the truth is, the most powerful version of you isn't focused on the past. They're too busy building something new, something stronger, something unstoppable. So ask yourself, have you really faced happened, or have you just been distracting yourself with noise? Have you actually processed the loss, or have you buried it under fake smiles and distractions? Are you healing or just pretending? Because there's a huge difference between being busy and being better when you finally sit down and say, this is what happened, this is how I felt, and this is how I'm choosing to grow from it. You start to regain control. You begin to transform your story from a source of shame into a source of strength. You stop being the victim of what happened and start becoming the author of what's next. And when you do that, when you step into ownership, when you embrace your truth, when you look at your reflection and see someone who refused to stay broken, something shifts. You stop chasing validation. You stop seeking closure. You stop caring whether they regret letting you go, because deep down you've already won. You didn't just survive the pain, you grew. You rose, you became someone stronger, wiser, more aware, and that version of you, that's the one they'll never get access to again. When your heart's been broken or someone's walked away from you, there's a moment, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, where you look at yourself and think, now what? That moment right there, that's where you decide who you become next. And one of the most transformative ways to shift everything is to start with your physical self, because your body doesn't lie. Your energy, your discipline, your presence, all of that radiates through. You carry yourself. That's why leveling up physically is so much deeper than changing how you look. It's about rebuilding how you show up for yourself. how you feel in your skin, how you command a room without saying a word. When someone loses you, they don't remember the last conversation, they remember how you made them feel. And when you walk away, evolved and elevated, looking stronger, moving with purpose, eyes forward and back, straight, they feel that shift. That's the power of physical transformation. It's not vanity, it's visibility. It's visual proof that you didn't just survive the loss. You used it as fuel. You see, every time you wake up early to move your body, to exercise, to stretch, to train, you're not just improving your health, you're telling yourself, I matter, I'm worth the effort. It could be a run at sunrise. It could be yoga in your bedroom. It could be strength training at a gym or dancing in your kitchen. The method doesn't matter. What matters is that you show up consistently. You move when your mind says rest. You sweat when your emotions want to sit in sadness. That's how you train discipline. That's how you read trust with yourself, by doing hard things on purpose every single day. And let's talk about nutrition, because what you put in your body becomes your energy. If you're living off processed food, caffeine, sugar highs, and emotional eating, your energy is going to reflect that you're going to feel tired, heavy, sluggish. Not just physically, but emotionally too. When you start fueling your body like someone who loves themselves, everything starts to shift. You think clearer, you walk taller, you sleep better, your skin glows, your eyes light up. And you start to recognize yourself again in the mirror, not the broken version, but the powerful one. You forgot was in there. Clothing plays a role too, because fashion matters more than healing, but because what you wear is your outer voice. It tells the world how you feel about yourself before you even open your mouth. So stop dressing like you're trying to disappear. Stop hiding under layers of pain. Dress like someone who deserves to be seen. Chooses that make you feel strong, not safe. Pick colors that reflect your fire, not your fear. When you start showing up like someone who values themselves, people will feel that energy even if they don't know your story. The way you move changes too. Confidence isn't about arrogance. It's about presence. It's in your posture. It's in the way you enter a room, the way you hold eye contact, the way you walk with intention. When you've done the work physically, when you've fought for your health, your body carries that memory. You start standing up straighter, not because someone told you to, but because your mind and body are finally aligned. You walk like someone who's overcome. And that's magnetic. Let's be clear. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about looking hot to make them jealous. That's short term, that's performative. This is about long-term power. This is about becoming someone you respect, someone you can rely on when you commit to improving physically. You stop waiting to feel better. You start becoming better and better. Doesn't mean more attractive to them. It means more connected to yourself, more focused, more disciplined, more resilient. You sleep deeper, you think sharper, you stop second guessing. Every decision you become grounded, and grounded people are powerful. So when they look back, and they won't just see a new body or a different look, they'll sense a different energy. They'll see the glow. They'll feel the strength in your silence. Deep down, they'll know they didn't just let go of the person you were. They lost a version of you that's now untouchable. But you're not looking back. You're too busy becoming. You're too focused on your growth, your power, your purpose. And the best part, you did it all for you. Not to prove anything, just to reclaim everything. Being unforgettable doesn't come from perfection. It doesn't come from pretending to be who you think others want you to be. It comes from standing in the truth of who you are, fully, fiercely, and without apology. The reason so many people get forgotten after a breakup or a fallout is because they were never showing their real selves in the first place. They were adapting, performing, editing themselves to fit into someone else's expectations, comfort, or approval. And here's the hard truth: when you live like that, you're easy to walk away from. Not because you aren't valuable, but because you never gave anyone the chance to see. The real you authenticity is magnetic. People don't remember perfect, they remember real. They remember that one person who showed up with raw honesty, the one who didn't pretend to be okay when they weren't the one who spoke up, who laughed loud, who cried when it was messy, who stood for something, who didn't shrink just to make others comfortable. If you want to be the one they regret letting go, stop trying to be liked and start being known. Known for your truth, known for your values, known for how you live, not just how you look. You can't be unforgettable if you're constantly shape-shifting for approval. You can't be impactful if you're constantly editing yourself to avoid judgment. You have to break the habit of filtering your personality to keep the peace. Because peace bought at the price of your authenticity is not peace. It's self-betrayal, and when you betray yourself long enough, you lose touch with who you are entirely. That's when you find yourself in relationships where you're constantly drained, constantly guessing, constantly begging to be chosen because you've made a habit of abandoning yourself to fit in. But when you choose to be authentically and unapologetically, it changes everything. You stop attracting people who like your mask and you start attracting those who resonate with your truth. You stop chasing validation because you've already validated yourself. You stop performing and you start living. And ironically, that's exactly when people start to notice. That's when you stand out. That's when the people who overlooked you, underestimated you, or walked away from you suddenly start to see what they missed. But by that point, you've outgrown the need for their attention. Being authentic doesn't mean being aggressive or rebellious. For the sake of it, it means choosing to live in alignment. It means not apologizing for your boundaries. It means saying no when you mean no. It means standing up for yourself. Even if your voice shakes, it means letting people see you without the filters, without the fake confidence, without the endless yeses, without the need to be impressive. That kind of honesty, it's rare, and in a world where everyone's trying to impress, the one who's just real becomes unforgettable. You weren't put on this earth to blend in. You weren't born to become a watered-down version of yourself, just to be acceptable to someone else. You're here to take up space, to speak your mind, to live in a way that aligns with your deepest values, even if it costs you certain people. And yes, it will cost you people. Some will walk away, some won't. Understand, some will prefer the version of you that stayed quiet. Agreeable, easy to man, but those aren't your people, and their loss is not your loss. It's theirs. Here's the beautiful irony. The more you embrace your authenticity, the more respect you earn, even from the ones who once dismissed you. Because people don't regret losing the most polished or obedient version of someone. They regret losing the one who stood out, the one who was different, the one who wasn't afraid to be disliked in order to be true. And that kind of person becomes impossible to forget. So stop shrinking, stop editing, stop rehearsing lines, and start speaking from your gut. Show your weird, own your depth, share your truth, live in a way that feels right to you, just right, to others, and watch what happens. You'll stop chasing closure. You'll stop replaying old conversations. You'll stop wondering what you could have done to make them stay, because deep down, you'll know you didn't lose. It lost you the real you. And once they realize what they walked away from, that regret, it doesn't haunt you, it haunts them. And that's when you truly win, when you start building a life that inspires you. Everything changes. And I mean everything. Because here's the truth. People don't regret letting go of someone who stayed stuck. They regret losing the person who became so lit up by their own passion, their own growth, their own purpose, that they didn't have time to look back. A life that inspires you doesn't just make them wonder why they let you go. It makes you wonder why you ever gave so much of yourself to someone who didn't see your worth. Think about it. And when was the last time you woke up excited to live your day? Not just survive it, not just get through it, but actually live it. That right there is what separates people who move on with power from those who stay stuck in the pain, because the pain doesn't just disappear. It gets replaced by meaning, by movement, by momentum that happens when you stop trying to prove yourself to someone who's no longer in your life and start building something so meaningful, so authentic, so undeniably yours that you become proud of who. This isn't about filling your calendar just to stay busy. This is about aligning your time with things that make you feel alive. Is it starting that business you've been thinking about for years? Is it learning a new skill that scares you just enough to make it exciting? Is it going back to school, writing your book, recording music, creating art, volunteering, traveling, launching something bold? Ask yourself, what have you been putting off because you were too caught up in the pain of what someone else did to you? It's time to get uncomfortable in the right ways. You're already uncomfortable grieving, doubting, hurting, so why not choose a discomfort that leads somewhere? Uncomfortable chasing something meaningful, instead of sitting in pain that goes nowhere. You'd be amazed what happens when you shift from waiting to creating, waiting for someone to come back to notice you, to realize your value. That's passive. But creating a life that lights you up, that's power, where the shift happens. You need to stop basing your worth on being wanted and start building your life based on what you want. You don't have to have it all figured out today, but you do have to start showing up to your own life with intention. Carve out space, day, even if it's just 15 minutes to invest in you, something that fills your mind, strengthens your body, or stretches your soul. Consistency over intensity. It's not about grand gestures. It's about choosing yourself in small daily ways until it becomes your default setting. And here's the truth. Nobody wants to say out loud, the person who let you go, they don't get to be part of this version of you. That's their loss, their regret. Because when you finally start living like you matter, when your days are filled with purpose, when your energy shifts from proving to growing, when you become someone who doesn't just talk about dreams, but builds them, your absence becomes the loudest thing in their life. Not because you're trying to make them feel that, but because your evolution makes it impossible for them not to feel it. People regret losing someone who stopped needing their validation. People regret losing someone who turned their pain into fuel. People regret losing someone who created your life so rich, so full, so magnetic that there's no space for the past anymore. So stop making them the center of your story. You are not the supporting character in someone else's journey. You are the author of your own. Start writing chapters that make you excited to wake up. Chapters filled with new experiences, new growth, and new power. Because when you build a life that inspires you, truly inspires you, you stop chasing, stop explaining, and start attracting everything and everyone aligned with your worth. And one day they'll look back, they'll see you thriving, glow evolving. And it'll hit them. They let go of the kind of person people fight to keep. But by then you'll be too busy living your life to even notice you don't need to explain yourself to anyone who walked away. You don't owe clarity, an update, or a highlight reel of your growth to someone who didn't have the patience to stay while you were figuring life out. What you owe above all is silence, not the kind that screams resentment, but the kind that reflects maturity. A silence that echoes with the power of self-worth, a silence that makes people pause and wonder what you're building. Behind the scenes, that's the kind of silence that hits harder than any speech you could ever give. It's natural to want to say something to defend yourself, to explain why you changed, or to prove they made a mistake. But the truth is, the more you explain yourself, the more you hand over your power. People who don't value your presence rarely value your words. So the louder you speak, the more they tune you out. But when you go quiet and level up in private, that's when curiosity creeps in. That's when they start to notice what they let go of without you saying a single thing. You see, growth doesn't need a press release. Doesn't need to be broadcasted to the person who caused your wounds. That need for validation, that desire for them to see you doing better is actually a sign you haven't fully let go. True growth doesn't chase acknowledgement. It exists with or without an audience. And the beautiful thing about silent transformation is that it commands attention without asking for it. People feel the difference when you're no longer operating from a place of pain. They notice when your presence becomes sharper, your boundaries firmer, your energy lighter. Most people think closure comes from a final conversation, a moment where everything gets explained. But real closure is when you stop needing one. It's when you no longer look for reasons and instead accept that some doors are meant to stay closed. Not because you're bitter, but because your peace matters more. That's what silence gives you. It creates space for healing. It gives you back your energy. It frees you from the emotional loop of trying to make someone see your worth when you go silent. You break the cycle. You stop replaying the story. You stop fueling the connection. And that's what people feel the most. The shift in your emotional energy, because whether they admit it or not, people can sense when they no longer have access to your mind, when they realize their words, their presence, or even their absence no longer controls how you feel. That's the most powerful transformation there is, and this doesn't mean pretending you're okay or acting like you don't care. It means actually becoming so grounded in yourself that their opinion no longer defines your progress. That's when your silence becomes a statement of strength, not spite, and when they come back around, even if it's months or years later. And many do it won't be because of the things you posted or the long texts you sent, trying to explain how much you've changed. It'll be because your absence, your silence, your growth spoke louder than any response ever could. You don't need to block them. You don't need to announce your exit. Just redirect your energy inward. Let them see space you used to give to them, now going into your goals, your body, your peace, your life. That shift is undeniable. It's magnetic, and people regret losing those who evolve in silence because they never see the moment they became replaceable. They look back and suddenly you're gone, not bitter, not loud, not dramatic, just gone, and you've become someone so elevated that even if they tried, they couldn't reach you. Now there's a quiet kind of revenge and healing so well that nothing they do can shake you anymore. Detaching so fully that you no longer care whether they understand what they lost, because the real power is never about hurting them back. It's about making sure you never again hand your peace to someone who couldn't protect it. Silence teaches you that it creates room for the next version of you to arrive, the version that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, and definitely doesn't chase closure, the version that glows in peace, not pain. So the next time you're tempted to send the long message to explain your side, to prove your growth, pause, breathe. Let your silence do the talking. Let your actions speak the truth, because the ones who let you go will only ever truly regret it when they can't recognize the person you've become and can no longer find a way back. in when someone walks away from your life. They're leaving behind the version of you that they thought they knew. Maybe it was the version that was still learning to love herself, the one that doubted himself, the one that hadn't yet found their voice. But here's the truth that most people miss you. Don't need to become a better version of yourself to make them regret letting you go. You need to become a different version entirely. Someone even you would chase if you met yourself today. Let that sink in. You can't make someone regret losing you by staying the same. You can't keep replaying the same conversation, wearing the same pain, walking through the same patterns and expect a different result. Regret isn't triggered by what's familiar. It's triggered by the unfamiliar. It hits when someone looks back and sees a person they don't even recognize anymore. A person who rose out of heartbreak and turned it into power. Outgrowing the version of yourself that they knew doesn't mean throwing away your past. It means evolving beyond it. It means stepping out of the emotional cage that held you small and learning how to walk with your head higher, your standards firmer, and your boundaries unshakable. It means creating new habits, showing up in new spaces, speaking with new authority. You don't do this overnight. You build it moment by moment, brick by choosing not to shrink. When life gets hard, you outgrow the version of you who texted back instantly. The one who needed validation to feel worthy, the one who accepted the bare minimum, because you were scared to lose in that person was doing the best they could, but you are not them anymore. Growth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's that split second. When you delete a message you once would have sent, sometimes it's saying no. When you used to say yes just to keep the peace. Sometimes it's walking away, not with anger, but with peace. Because you finally know who you are and what you deserve. You don't chase revenge. You don't post for attention. You don't announce your glow up with filters and captions. You let your presence speak. That's how you know you've outgrown the version they knew when you don't even feel the need to perform anymore. You're not proving anything. You're just being, and that being radiates strength, clarity, and a level of peace that only comes when you've faced your darkness and walked out of it. Strong, here's something powerful. The version of you that they knew was probably someone who loved hard, gave deeply, maybe even too much. But now your love has standards. Your time has boundaries. Your energy is expensive. You've redefined what it means to care. You've redefined what it means to be available. You've taken back control of your narrative, and that is what people regret losing, not just your presence, but evolution. Because when someone realizes they didn't just lose a person, they lost the chance to grow with that person. They don't just feel lost, they feel small. Every time you choose growth over comfort, discipline over distraction, healing over repeating cycles, you widen the gap between who you were and who you are now, and the wider that gap becomes, the harder it is for someone from your past to even reach you, let alone relate to you. That's where the regret starts. That's when it hits them, not because you're showing off, but because they finally understand, didn't just lose you, they lost the opportunity to meet the next version of you, the upgraded, elevated, aligned version, and now that version doesn't wait around. That version doesn't lower itself to fit back into a space that's outgrown you. Don't need to beg to be seen, and you just need to be brave enough to change, brave enough to let go of what felt safe, brave enough to say, that version of me was beautiful, but I'm not staying there. Keep growing, keep evolving, keep rewriting the story of who you are. Eventually, the only thing they'll recognize about you is that they'll never get to be a part of this new chapter. And that's exactly the point. Stop seeking revenge. Start seeking results. That's where everything changes, because revenge keeps you stuck in a loop. It's reactive. It makes your entire identity about what they did and how you want to respond it your power into a performance. And when you're performing for someone who left you behind, you're still giving them control. You think posting a perfect picture, showing them you're out and happy will make them regret it. But the truth is, if your actions are designed to be seen by them, then you're still trapped in the relationship mentally, emotionally, and energetically. That's not growth, that's dependency disguised as empowerment. The moment you switch gears and start focusing on results instead of revenge, you break that cycle, because results are about you. They're about your path, your progress, your potential. It's not about making anyone jealous, it's about making yourself proud. The focus shifts from trying to be visible to them to becoming valuable to yourself. And that's the shift that actually makes you unforgettable. Seeking revenge might give you a temporary high, but it never lasts. You'll always want to do more, show more, prove more. But when you see results, you build a foundation. You build real success, real growth, real self-respect. Every hour you spend working on yourself, mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, is an hour invested in your next level. And here's the truth. No one tells you the higher you rise, the less you care if they see it, because at some point you realize didn't need to win them back. It needed to win you back. Start seeking mastery, learn something new, invest in your skills, upgrade your habits, build discipline into your mornings, take control of your time. These aren't flashy revenge tactics. They're quiet, consistent actions that create transformation. While they may not get likes, they get results. And those results start compounding. You become sharper, clearer, more confident. You start trusting yourself again. That's what real glow up looks like. Not filters and fake happiness, but real alignment with your goals, your values and your purpose. When you chase results, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to impress someone, but because you radiate self-respect. People feel it. Your energy changes when you stop caring about who's watching and start caring about who you're becoming. You walk differently, you speak differently, you move with a purpose, and that energy doesn't need to scream. It's quiet, it's calm, it's powerful. That here's the secret. The person who walked away from you probably didn't think you'd evolved. They counted on you being stuck. They expected you to chase, to beg, to perform, but when you go silent, not out of spite, but because you're focused, and when you stop reacting and start building, that's when it hits them. That's when they look back and see someone they never really knew someone. They never really appreciated someone they'll never have access to again. So the question is not how do I make them see what they lost? The question is how do I build a life so meaningful that I forget to even care? You don't want to look back a year from now and realize you spent 12 months checking your phone waiting for a message that never came. You want to look back and say, damn, I rebuilt everything they broke. This is about turning your pain into progress, not pretending you're fine, but using that pain as fuel. Use it in the gym, use it in your craft, use it in your silence. Every time you feel that sting, channel it not into revenge, but into creation, into discipline, into elevation. Because at the end of the day, results speak louder than any message you could send. And when your life becomes the proof, no words are needed. So stop scrolling through their feed. Stop wondering what they're thinking. Start asking yourself where you're going, where you want to be 6 months from now, what you want to feel when you wake up, who you want to become for you. Because when you show up for yourself that relentlessly, no one who ever left you can compete with the version of you that rose from it. Let them go. Let the memory fade. Let the regret belong to them. Your only job now is to rise, not to get even, but to get free. Not to hurt them, but to heal. You not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. That's where your power lives in results, not revenge. You don't just wake up one day with self-worth burning inside you like a fire. It's not a personality trait you're born with. It's not something you buy fake or post about. It's a discipline, a practice, a choice. You have to make every single day, especially on the days you don't feel like it. You build it in the quiet moments when no one's cheering you on. You build it when you're choosing not to chase someone who doesn't value you. Build it when you're picking yourself over approval, over comfort, over temporary attention. Self-worth is earned, not from others, but from yourself. It starts in the morning when you open your eyes. The second your feet hit the floor, you already have two choices. Do you step into the day with intention, or do you scroll your way back into someone else's life? Do you walk with posture, clarity, or do you shrink and seek validation through distractions? The first sign of self-worth is how you treat your own time. People who respect themselves don't waste their morning. They use them to set the tone, to anchor their thoughts, to create momentum. You don't wait for the motivation to you become the one who shows up regardless of how you feel, and that discipline leaks into everything, your conversations, your standards, your boundaries. You stop begging people to understand you. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, overextending. You start saying no without guilt. You stop bending over backwards. For people who wouldn't even meet you halfway, not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that your energy is your currency and you're not spending it where it's not appreciated. Self-worth is also how you carry yourself when no one is watching. It's in how you talk to yourself after you mess up, when you fail, when you feel rejected, when everything feels heavy. That's when self-worth is tested. Do you spiral, or do you sit with the discomfort and choose to rise anyway? Do you beat yourself up or remind yourself this moment doesn't define me? Most people fold when life hits hard, but the ones who build unshakable worth, they rise in those moments. They turn pain into fuel. They choose growth over self-pity. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about choosing the hard thing over the easy excuse. That's what self-worth looks like in real life. It's not in the loud confidence, the pretty pictures, or the highlight reels. Choosing to show up to that workout, that job, that uncomfortable truth, because you know the person you're becoming demands more from you. And here's the thing, when you start living like that, when your habits, your body, your goals, your space, all reflect someone who values themselves. You start radiating something most people don't understand. You become magnetic without even trying. You carry an energy that says, I don't need you, I choose me. And ironically, that's when everyone who took you for granted starts noticing. That's when they come back, not because they've changed, but because you have. But you're not doing this for them. You're doing this because you finally see your own reflection clearly, because you finally understand that your worth isn't something others give you. It's something you claim, something you prove to yourself. Through discipline, you don't just tell yourself you're valuable. You act like it. You treat your life like it matters. And once you do that, once you show up like someone who matters, everything around you changes the way people treat you, changes the way you speak up in rooms, changes the way you walk into opportunities, changes. So if you want to be the one they regret letting go, stop waiting to be chosen, choose yourself fully, repeatedly, practice self-worth in the small daily decisions. Because when you repeat consistently, you won't need to prove anything to anyone. Your presence will say everything. Your life will become the proof. And that's when the regret sets in, not because you wanted it, but because they finally realized what they lost. But by then, you'll be long gone too, focused, too evolved, deeply rooted in your worth to ever look